Story 1. Oh, I played the long game. I am by no means an expert or pro at revenge, but I am a patient person. I disclosed this to a friend and they directed me here. Throw away for obvious reasons. It's a long read, but the setup and backstory are important. 7 years ago, I was lucky enough to be able to buy my own place. I had saved for 10 years, worked my ass off, and I was so happy to be able to have a place to call my own. Now, being a single person on the mortgage meant I had to make compromises. One such compromise was buying a property on a shared block, a lot cheaper. Where I'm from, this usually means it's on a strata title. For some, that's a bonus, as it means there's a communal fund for repairs. Typically, insurance is cheaper as it's collective, and other things like maintenance being taken care of. Strata titles also come with a lot of bylaws and restrictions on what you can and can't do. I'm a pretty private and introverted person, so having to deal with people and have limits on how I live was a no-no. I took my time, found the perfect property, shared block but freehold title. Only thing that was I needed to pay public liability insurance for the shared walkway on the property, split equally between owners. The real estate agent is local to my area. There's also about 3 degrees of separation between us. He has friends who are friends with my friends type of thing. Didn't know him, but knew of him, so that sort of felt good too. About 5 months after I move in, I get a knock on the door from the owner, landlord of the property next to me to discuss insurance. Not a problem. I ask for a copy of the policy, so I have a record. It gets sent through, and lo and behold, it's for strata insurance. I was incredibly confused, and after much back and forth, the property isn't a freehold title, but a strata title. I called my lawyer, who conveyed the title, etc. He was dumbfounded, but over it all, did the right thing and made things as right as they could. I arranged for a meeting with the real estate agent. I brought emails and printouts of the ads they had, all saying it was freehold. Emails between the real estate agent and my lawyer discussing its freehold status. Despite it being in absolute black and white, he refused to accept any fault or offer anything to make things right. I don't begrudge that. He's looking out for himself. I get that. However, I wouldn't forget it. I did enter into mediation with the real estate agent, and all I asked for was, when the time came for me to sell, they'd do it or cover the costs. I thought this was reasonable, but they flat out refused, offered me $1,000 to go away, which I refused. I had the option to pursue them legally and was advised by the mediator to do so, but ultimately I decided against it for a few reasons. The main one being my health at the time. So I planned and plotted, and I schemed and connived as to how to get back at this son of a bitch. And I settled on this. I found his personal Facebook page, which wasn't set to private, saw some photos of a boys on tour trip he went on a few weeks prior, so about 5 to 6 months after I bought the property. I also found his address through a business registration search. On the anniversary of the sale, for 6 years straight, I sent them flowers with a note, "Dear real estate agent, remembering you on this, our special day. She has your eyes. Love, L." They varied ever so slightly over the years, but always had "on this, our special day," and some weird inference to a love child and a desire to reconnect. I also from time to time arranged for postcards and letters to be sent from another country, the one he was on tour in, always signed Love L. I learned about 3 weeks ago that this guy had recently divorced, lost his home, and is not longer working as a real estate agent. His wife had found out he cheated on her. The story I was told, through said friends of friends, went along the lines of he would get weird gifts and flowers every year, same day, every year. She, his wife, finally put 2 and 2 together and realized what the date was, and he admitted to cheating on her. Now, I didn't mean for this, but it turns out a year before I bought my house, he had gone on holiday, came back with an STD, gave it to his wife, but somehow convinced her that it wasn't him. As such, our special day turned out to be right around the time he'd have been balls deep, sans condom, in someone who wasn't his wife, only 1 year earlier. He's apparently lost his house, half his retirement savings, and also his business. I do feel a little bit guilty about all of it sometimes, but then I'm reminded that he's a scumbag, and that karma, like me, is a patient, spiteful, and vengeful bitch. Wow, That is quite the story. So first off, let's take a moment to admire the patience and dedication this person had over 7 years. I mean, how many of you would be willing to keep up with a scheme like that for so long? Drop a comment if you think you could. What stands out to me is the initial impact of discovering the property wasn't what they were led to believe. Imagine thinking you've bought your dream home only to find out you've been misled about something so critical. That's a huge betrayal. Now, the whole revenge plot is honestly quite devious, but also kind of ingenious. Using social media to gather intel, then sending flowers and postcards yearly to plant the idea of an affair, that takes some serious strategic thinking. I can't help but wonder, how did this guy not figure it out sooner? Like, did he never question the strange gifts and notes? And the twist that the real estate agent had indeed cheated a year before is almost like a cosmic alignment. It's interesting how little actions can snowball into life-changing events. The bit about him losing his home and job adds a real sense of finality to the revenge. So what do you all think? Too harsh or poetic justice? Let me know in the comments. Story 2. Want to have your cake and eat it too? Two-timing baby daddy gets his just desserts. For context, years ago I, 20F, and the father of my first 2 children, 26M, were going through a rough time in our relationship. He was working night shift as a janitor in a nursing home, while I was going to college for nursing during the day. We had a 1-year-old, and I had just given birth to our son 3 months earlier. There was a woman that he worked with that I had gotten to know pretty well when I would bring him his lunches. We were friends, or so I thought. He was supposed to be waxing the floors at night when no one was up and about. Just so happened my cousin ran into him and her having drinks at a local bar on one of the nights that he was supposed to be working. Massive fight, got off early, just friends, blah blah blah, won't happen again. About a month later comes the talk. We have been fighting too much, let's keep this amicable for the kids and stay friends. Mind you, the house was mine. I paid the bills with grants and scholarships I earned through school. The car he drove was mine too. I would be nice and allow him to stay till he got something figured out, still take my car to work. I still fed him all that good nonsense. Then he starts being loving and we continue a physical relationship. I happen to be feeding our son one morning while he still sleeps and his phone goes off. I know, don't look for it if you don't want to know, right? Turns out he's been carrying on a relationship with the other woman the whole time he's been with me. It would have been fine if that's what he wanted, if he wasn't doing the same with me at the same time. Petty revenge. I crawled back into bed with him, naked, and he snuggled up like he always does. I took pictures from his phone, nice and graphic ones. I sent them to her from his phone, along with a very nicely, in my opinion, worded message explaining everything that he had been up to and into. Then I got dressed to the wonderful pings from his phone and continued about my day packing his things. He woke a few hours later and went for his phone first thing. I happen to come into the room as he's trying to call her, and when he turns to look at me, I can see all the blood rush from his face. He can't even mount a defense as I tell him all about the conversation me and his new girlfriend have had, along with some photos. All his things are now out on the porch boxed up. I tell him he no longer lives in my house and to leave. He starts to blubber about where will he go. So I told him that he better call his girlfriend to come pick him up and live with her because he sure as hell isn't using my vehicle anymore. And that sounds like his problem. And I shut the door on him. I had been with this man-child for 6 years, given my body, heart, and sanity to this man. Hell, I was even willing to still let him live there, not paying bills, eat there, and drive my car for him to be sleeping with both of us at the same time. Was it petty? Hell yeah, but it was deserved. Wow, this story is a roller coaster. First off, I can't believe the audacity of this guy. He's got a family and a girlfriend on the side while relying entirely on his partner's generosity. That's just beyond disrespectful. It's crazy to think of how she was juggling so much at once. A 1-year-old, a newborn, college, and then this emotional bombshell. One thing that stood out to me is how our storyteller steps into action. she didn't lose her cool in the moment. Instead, she thought things through and struck back in a way that was both poetic and deserved. Taking those pictures and sending a message to the other woman directly from his phone was bold but effective. And can we talk about the moment he realized he was caught? Turning white as a sheet and scrambling to call his girlfriend, that's classic. It's also interesting how she points out the way she was willing to help him out even after finding out he was lying. Many people might just throw him out immediately, but she was considerate enough to give him time to figure out his next move until she found out even more. Then she justifiably drew the line. What do you guys think? Was her revenge justified? How would you have handled the situation if you were in her shoes? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more story reactions. Story 3. I don't like liars. This happened 5+ years ago, and it's still one of my proudest moments. I was dating this guy, Dan, going through a custody battle with his ex-girlfriend over their toddler. We worked at the same bar with this girl named Billie Jean. Billie Jean was an old friend of Dan and had worked with him before. She also had previously worked with the mother of Dan's child, Rachel, and everyone was seemingly friends and remaining civil. Or so I thought. Billie Jean had secretly taken sides and wrote a terrible affidavit lying about Dan. Dan somehow got a copy of it. I don't remember how the court process went. As I was reading it, I kept getting more and more irate. I hate liars, and one thing I really feel that crosses a boundary is using a child for leverage to hurt the other parent. Billie Jean was knowingly lying under oath and siding with Rachel to prevent Dan from parenting his kid, and he was by no means a bad dad. Well, Billie Jean had enemies that I worked with and had easy access to contact. These enemies had sold Billie Jean a car that she wasn't paying them for. I didn't necessarily like the people who owned the car, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I called them up and told them I came in peace. I asked if they had Billie Jean's address to get back their car. They did not. I passed off Billie Jean's info and waited for her to call me. Now, I was one of 2 people who could have ratted out the location of the car. And when Billie Jean called me to tell me her car got repoed, she said she had no idea who could have done it. It would have either been me or her ex Robbie. I tell her casually, I don't think it was Robbie, and I swear up and down she responded with, well, who would have done it then? I held back laughter and finished the conversation with half-assed, oh, I don't know, that's so weird, type comments until she hung up. Dan was next to me in the car snickering. Dan won shared custody of his child, and Billie Jean lost her bar job because she didn't have transportation to work an hour away. To this day, I wonder if she ever pieced together that it was me. I don't like liars. Oh wow, this story is quite the roller coaster. Let's break it down a bit. So the main character is dealing with this custody battle with her boyfriend Dan, and they all work at the same bar. Enter Billie Jean, who seemed like a friend but was secretly siding with Dan's ex, Rachel. That's already pretty intense, right? What's really striking here is the level of betrayal. Billie Jean writes a false affidavit to sabotage Dan's chances of getting custody. And lying under oath? That's just next-level shady. The protagonist here takes a pretty bold step. By contacting Billie Jean's enemies and giving away her address, it's like a page straight out of a drama series. What's your take on that, though? Do you think she went too far, or was it justified given the circumstances? I think the best part is the phone call where Billie Jean is clueless about who tipped off her enemies. Our protagonist's response is both hilarious and savage. It's like she's playing a game of chess and just made the winning move without Billie Jean even realizing it. And in the end, Dan wins shared custody and Billie Jean loses her job. It's almost poetic justice. What do you guys think? Did Billie Jean get what she deserved, or did it go too far? Let me know in the comments.